American prisoner Clayton Lockett. He was scheduled to be executed by the lethal injection in Oklahoma in 2014. But what was supposed to be a humane and painless procedure turned into a horrific and botched execution. Why? Why he was executed? What was his crime? Lockett, who was 38 years old, was convicted of the killing of 19-year-old Stephanie Neyman in 1999. She was shot and buried alive. Lockett was also convicted of raping her friend. In this video, you will get an insight to the details of the suffering and pain inflicted on Lockett. A paramedic who was charged for starting an IV for Lockett on April 29th told state officials that on the night of the execution, she was having difficulty inserting the needle. According to the paramedic, Lockett was very cooperative, and that at one point the prisoner said, "I have got a V in my leg, my right leg." But the paramedic told Lockett that she didn't like using such veins because they cause a lot of clots. The execution team didn't have the size needles they needed. They couldn't find the veins that would work. Lockett was pricked at least 16 times in attempts to get the IV inserted for the lethal injection. The correct needle was unavailable, and the doctor used a 1.25 inches needle instead of a 2 inches to 2.25 inches needle to put an IV in Lockett's femoral vein. The drugs didn't start taking effect when they thought they would. The first drug in the lethal injection was given at 6:23 p.m. The doctor declared him unconscious at 6:33 p.m. But the doctor observed that while the other drugs were given, Lockett raised his head up a couple of times and was kind of jerking it. Lockett started moaning and the doctor thought he was seizing. One of the women ran out of the room because she saw Lockett speaking. She told that it was like a horror movie for her, as he kept trying to talk when he should be fully unconscious. The viability of the IV access point was the single greatest factor that contributed to the difficulty in administering the execution drugs to Lockett. There was confusion and distress in execution chamber. At one point, the paramedic who had participated in several executions in the past described the atmosphere in the chamber as, "There was an air of urgency. The quick, got to get it done, and got to make sure that everything is done right." Now anyone knows out there what's the composition of lethal injection. Oklahoma injected Lockett with midazolam, which acts as a sedative and is also used as an anti-seizure drug, followed by bacteronium bromide, which is used to cause muscle paralysis and respiratory arrest, and potassium chloride to stop the heart. The drugs came from a licensed pharmacist in the state of Oklahoma. As the lethal drugs began to flow, Lockett started to twitch and convulse, his body writhing in agony. He moaned and groaned, his eyes bulging in terror. The witnesses watched in horror as Lockett's body contorted and shook, his skin turning a sickly shade of green. The executioners had botched the injection, causing Lockett's veins to rupture and the drugs to flood his tissue. He was effectively being tortured to death, his body burning from the inside out. As the minutes ticked by, Lockett's screams grew louder and more desperate. He cried out for mercy, begging for the pain to stop. But it was too late. The executioner had already administered the fatal dose and Lockett's life was slipping away. Lockett died 43 minutes after the first execution drug was administered on 29th April at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. He groaned, writhed, lifted his head and shoulders off the gurney. Blinds were then drawn, blocking the killing from the view of journalists and his attorneys. The witnesses were left traumatized, haunted by the memory of Lockett's gruesome and inhuman death. The incident sparked outrage and calls for reform, highlighting the dark and sinister reality of the death penalty in the USA.